If you want to learn about like what we do with differential equations and how we make predictions given some initial conditions, you have to go and learn about that. I can't just tell you how this all works in a matter of 5 minutes. This took me years to study and learn about. So if you want to understand these things, I don't have the time to be educating you on these right now.
Right.
And it's really hard to...
a really good job of walking us all through some of the fundamentals of it too. Thank you for that.
But there's
no worries, dude.
Questions that I have.
This is very math heavy. This is very math heavy, and
that's where the
to explain. Wait.
Equations come in.
To explain the math in a way that everybody can understand, where you don't have to keep questioning the terms, is almost impossible when we talk about how we measure stuff.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that they can't understand it for any other reason other than they just don't have the knowledge acquired.
And that's why if you want that knowledge and you want to understand it, you have to go and study it. You're not going to learn it in a matter of 2 minutes of me just spouting and showing you some diagrams here. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of
understanding
work.
it.
Thank you for
just learning it. It doesn't mean you don't understand it.
Right.
You know, the whole concept of it.
But what I'm like.
Well, the thing is that
ultimately what
hey,
I'm
dude,
like,
just a second.
Really
the thing
happening here is that I'm
just a sec. Yeah, look, Dave. I think the thing is that if he wants all the details, he's asking why, and for me, I would have to go through all of the physics in order to answer all of these questions. And
yeah,
if
I
he
get
wants
it. There's a lot of it. It's so ridiculously how much there is of it. I mean, like, where do you even begin? Like, this, I get it. Yes, there's a lot.
And you're not typically saying why.
And then you think to yourself, and then you hear someone say like, "Oopsie daisy, I think the world is flat." And it's like, what?
No. No.
You do?
Okay.
And it's
Dave,
like,
okay.
Hold on. Whoa, where are we
Hold
going
on, Dave.
with this?
Hold on, Dave, for a second. Let's just round off this conversation with eDocs, okay? Before we jump into something else.
Yeah. So eDocs.
You didn't understand his explanation, so I don't even know how you got to that level of questioning. And it's not to be rude, but you're getting frustrated not because of Robbie. You're getting frustrated because of your own understanding level. So don't project that onto him.
Look, another problem is Robbie brought out the graph and everything. Like, I don't have live access anymore, so I can't like pull up my camera and like show the graphs. But he showed you the graph, and he went pretty well in depth with the graph. And the problem really stems from you don't really know the fundamentals of how we do things, which is fine. I'm not expecting anybody to. But when you ask deep questions like that, you kind of have to think of the consequences of it and how long it took us to even understand it and relative to you. You know what I mean? So we just can't explain years worth of study in 5 minutes and make it very comprehensible. Because then I would have to derive all the math for it, and then why that works, and then why that works, and then everything else. It's really hard when you don't have the foundations. But
The only thing I ask is, can you guys make me a coloring book? That would be great.
no.
I want
have no
stick
problem
figures and crayons.
I have no problem explaining things to people like that involve like some foundations in quantum mechanics or general relativity for that matter. But like, you kind of have to trust me on some things, and you kind of have to trust me on like when I say things like, maybe let's touch on this a little later, or maybe go read this on your own, because it's for a reason. It's really hard.
And also, another point that I think was made clear but wasn't really tracking was Pseudo, just to be clear, you were saying that though this thing isn't like impossible under this model, you don't even hold to that, right? You were just saying if you wanted to, you could do something like this.
Yeah. Someone asked me about bidirectional determinism.
Yeah, it was Jim.
I explained what it was and why it even works and why it's not like, or why it happens, basically.
Yeah.
It's just
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I I think it's really important to have these debates. It's frustrating for the one party and the other. But I think it actually is important to reinforce how you feel or you don't feel. Like, if you feel one way, go for it. If that's what you truly believe, go for it. I think these are fun debates.
We weren't really debating though. We were trying to just teach a little bit. Yeah, I'll just drop Uncle as well. Sorry.
No,
I just don't have time for that.
Listen to me.
I don't like him up here.
I had something I wanted to talk about whenever the time comes up.
I still love you, Rory. I brought you up. I can't control everything.
I'll be honest. I get
Sorry,
most lives.
Just a second, Dave. Satyr and Wright wanted to speak, and then you can speak after them. I just want to let the rounds go.
Say something stupid, but Rory, you're supposed to be retired.
He's I know. I didn't see him for a while, and then he came back.
Okay.
What did he
Dave,
retire from?
I'll give you the opportunity in a sec, Dave. I just wanted to let Satyr go first, and then Wright, and then you can go.
Yeah, so I mean, if that was all you had to say, Satyr, is that all?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So I was talking earlier about this, and I don't know if this has been thought of before. Probably it has, but kind of weirdly, you guys started talking about past and future right before this. But I've been thinking lately about the Kalam, right? The first premise of the Kalam. It's not clear to me how it's not at least possibly a contradiction, right? Where everything that begins to exist has a cause. Let's say begin is referent A and has a cause. Let's say cause is referent B. The contradiction would be something like A is the first instance of time, and it's not the case that A is the first instance of time. Namely, B is the first instance of time. Does that make sense, or?
So you're saying A is the instance of time and B is not? Sorry, I was working and kind of half listening. I thought maybe the rest of the panel might have jumped on, but say it again and I'll try and interrupt.
So yeah, the first premise of the Kalam.
I did hear the first premise.
Mm-hmm.
I know the first premise of the Kalam, so I guess you're questioning the
If that manages to say that sentence again, I'll be flabbergasted.
Okay, yeah. So the first premise of the Kalam: everything begins to exist has a cause. Let's call begins there referent A, and let's call in the has a cause. Let's call cause there referent B. The contradiction I think that comes up is that it is the case that A is the first instance of time, and it's not the case that A is the first instance of time, B is the first instance of time. Because has a cause means antecedent to me.
But then that antecedent, would that have a cause? So that would be the uncaused cause, right?
Well, it depends on I'm an atheist, so from my point, it would either be a contradiction or it would just also be in favor of an infinite regress, which the Kalam tries to argue against.
Avoid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think you can probably pose that. I at the moment haven't given it enough thought to really see how someone would try to dispute what you're presenting here.
yeah.
But I would say that, for me, it seems incoherent to even have some kind of causal mechanism outside of that first cause, and especially when it comes to even if time even existed before that initial state, right?
Yeah. No, I have some intuition that is in line with that, and I would even say that mine goes so far as to say that when I think people say time had a beginning, I think had a beginning there is also just going to be some kind of either a contradiction or just not in line with what they're trying to argue.
Right. But I personally think the second one is probably easier to dispute. the second premise, which is that the universe began to exist.
Yeah, I think the universe is past
I'm-
eternal.
Yeah, and so I think like with different, I guess if through that you can have that discussion, then sure. I don't know which
My
of these
turn
would be
yet?
better.
No, sorry, it's not. My bad.
Okay,
Because I was like running this. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so for me, I don't know. Maybe you can run what you did. I'm sure there would be troubles with that. I think, I don't know. I personally try to target the second premise rather than the first premise, because there are parts by which I think that's a bit harder for me to defend, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Can I ask a question regarding that?
Yeah.
Because we were talking earlier, I just came back and you guys were talking about causation, the Kalam argument. It kind of goes with the contingency argument as well. But I would like to know, do you guys believe that, like the universe is made of like different matters as like energy or physical laws? Do you think these components are dependent or independent?
I don't think it would matter to like anything involving like an eternal past, but I would say that they're like in some like dependent. If I had to choose one, just based on how like I feel.
So do you believe in an infinite regress?
I believe in a past eternal universe. Yeah.
And a what?
Like a past
Can
eternal.
I introduce you guys to something?
Look, we're just in the middle of a conversation, Dave. Sorry.
Right, what were you saying?
I don't want it to be derailed. Don't bring him back up, please, mods.
I'm saying that I do believe that
That's why I dropped him
the
in
past is
first place.
eternal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Really, really quick right here. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, you guys
Do
can call me Zach as well.
E-Docs do you want to bring him back up or no?
No.
No.
I'm too tired for that.
Okay.
Okay, right. So you were saying you believe in the infinite regress as
I believe in an eternal past. Yeah.
consistent chain of dependent things happening.
Right. Yeah, I do believe that. Yeah.
Okay. But doesn't it fail, like the infinite regress fails to explain why that chain exists at all?
To explain why it exists, that's kind of weird to me. But I don't think there's any problem with having a past eternal universe. Like for example, like you're experiencing right now, and I'm experiencing right now. So it doesn't matter how long we stretch into the past. It's always going to be like in that infinite set. It's always going to be a finite number of units of time away from this moment we're in right now. So I don't really see the problem.
Okay. Can I propose a syllogism, just like to
Yeah.
take it into a perspective of dependency and independence?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So, because the way that I'm coming to my conclusion of there existing a independent force, whatever you want to call it, a god or
A beginning.
a beginning, yeah, something. I believe in there being an independent source, and if we want to just start off by defining the terms, like dependent things is something that cannot exist on its own. Like it depends on external factors.
Yeah, like a contingent
Right.
thing, right?
Yeah, contingency.
Okay, yeah.
And something being independent would be it's self-sufficient, self-explanatory, doesn't require
Like a brute thing.
any support or anything else, right?
Yeah, like a brute fact or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have that as that chain being the brute facts.
Well, maybe you could phrase it that way. I would say that I don't see anything wrong with an infinitely regressing chain of causally linked things, right?
Okay.
Like if every effect is just caused, and that cause is just the effect of some other cause, and just keep going.
Okay. Because I'm taking it from like a really nice argument that I heard was like it's going like just to begin with an example of we know, like, if you take the first premise, let's say with the example of if John is English, then he is European. And the second premise is John is not European, which argues then that therefore John is not English.
Yeah, that would be like modus tollens, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, of course, the Kalam argument would be everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, then therefore the universe has a cause, right?
Yeah, that would be modus ponens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like it to put it differently of there is existence, and if there is existence, it must either be dependent or independent. And we just kind of define that dependent things are something that cannot exist on its own. It has to come from somewhere else, right?
Yeah, but quick question. Under your view, right, you would say that the universe is both, right? Because you believe in an independent thing, which everything else depends on. So I don't think that that dichotomy would work with your view. Would you say that?
I'm sorry.
Can I say something about this?
Okay, can I just finish it? And then, because I didn't understand exactly what you meant by that.
Sure,
But I'm
sure.
saying everything that is dependent, like the universe, because it exists of different components that you can take away from it, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, the universe is dependent. And I'm saying everything in the universe in that way has to come from an independent source that is self-sufficient, that doesn't require anything else, that doesn't have, it's not existent upon components.
Is that a composition division, or is that saying because things in the universe are dependent, therefore the universe is dependent? Something like that?
Not the universe.
Well, okay, existence or something?
Okay. It depends on how we define what the universe is.
Space and time. Would you agree?
That the universe is space and time?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, then how are you using that word?
Okay, that the universe is space and time. Okay.
No, if that's not what you mean by it, just explain what you mean by it. Because presumably, like when you've been like formulating this thought process, you've meant something when you use the word universe in that argument. So what have you meant by it?
Yeah. I'm just thinking the way that, okay, space and time, it would probably be that. But I'm saying those are some components that exist.
Okay.
Like, I'm thinking those are dependent. Time and space.
Like they have to be?
And come again?
Are you saying like a weaker claim, like they probably are or they most likely are? Or are you making the claim that like necessarily they are?
That's actually a good question.
I'd like to ask Wright about the infinite regress.
Yeah, go ahead. You can call me Zach as well. That's fine.
Zach, if you postulate an infinite regress, then you're not actually explaining anything, and so like when you have a worldview, it's got to have like explanatory power.
Yeah. So I think that it's like when I say I believe in like a past eternal universe, I just think that there's a strong inductive case to be made there, and I also like typically like if I'm talking to somebody, they're going to be religious, and one of their like sound bites is like, how could something come from nothing? And I think that like if I have good reasons to believe that the universe is past eternal, which I think I do, I can like pose the question on them, because if they think that time has a beginning, right, it's actually them who thinks that something came from nothing or something like that, and it's not the case that I do. What'd you say, CJ?
I said I have a question for you. Do you think that in 100 years that we'll have an answer? Everybody here will either know the truth, either there is a God or there isn't a God. Would you say that that's true?
I feel like 100 years is maybe hopeful. I think that at some point, people will be able to form better truth making mechanisms. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is when we die, we'll know.
Oh, I mean, under my belief system, I might not know, but if I just stop existing, I won't know. But
Fair enough. A question: do you ever have days when you doubt your faith? Like we all doubt our faith. Everybody has faith.
I'm an
I have days
atheist.
that I know. I'm saying that's your faith. Do you ever have days when you doubt it?
Oh, no, I'm always open to being convinced, right?
Right.
Like if you were, because I think that like that's a big thing for me as far as like free will is concerned. I think that like, let's say that you believe something and I think that's false, right? But you're really enamored with this idea and holding this idea. And let's say I just give you a string of reasonings, right? That just convinces you that you've been wrong. There's going to be a lot of reasons for you to want to hold on to that view, but you can't choose to be convinced of what I'm saying. You'll either be convinced or not. And you know.
Yeah, I guess what I'm
I've
saying
got a question, mate. When there's time for me to pop up, but you seem pretty polite. But I don't know what your decorum is here, so I don't want to tread on anyone's toes. So just let me know when it's all right to ask a question.
Yeah, I think CJ and Wright are interacting. As soon as they finish, then you can ask a question for sure.
Thank you. When I say, do you ever have your days when you wake up in the morning and you might go, gee, I might be wrong. I mean, I get it, but do you ever have your doubts? Or are you always 100%,
Never 100%, never 100%. But I would also say that waking up in the morning, let's say I woke up in the morning and I just found myself doubting whether I thought that people should be treated equally or some crazy thing, right? Me waking up with like a feeling that doesn't align with my normal status quo isn't a reliable pathway to true beliefs, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I would just, if I ever did find myself thinking things like that, I would just reassure myself that like this isn't a reliable way to come to something that's true, and I would just, I don't know, see a psychiatrist or something. I don't know.
I don't think anybody can talk you into it. It's just like, my belief is that God is sovereign and he chooses who he wants to save. And he made this whole thing, he made this whole experiment. That's just my belief. And so, I mean, I can't talk you into saying, hey, the sun is 93 million miles away from the earth. If it was any closer, we'd burn up. If it was any farther away, we'd freeze to death. I mean, the Lord has made it so we can exist in every facet of the way this world was created.
Can I ask you something about that?
Yeah.
Do you agree that in any world where life is able to come about, the world would be finely tuned for that life to come about?
Yeah, there would have to be, in order for life to exist, for example, we're always looking for intelligent life on other planets, right? My joke is, well, what if they're just average and they're just below intelligence? We'd probably pass them by. We're always looking for someone who's
No, wait, no, I'm not talking about that. So let's just imagine a bunch of worlds, right?
Yeah.
So any one of those, let's say there are going to be some possible worlds that are life permitting and some that aren't. Let's ditch the ones that are not. All of those ones that allow for life to form eventually. Yep. If you were to be able to transport your consciousness into some being in that world, you would think, no matter what the conditions were, let's say the sun is 2 feet from you, right? You would say, "Wow, look at this world that was perfectly designed for me."
Right.
So what Gabe was saying earlier, I don't think that has a lot of explanatory power if it can be applied to any possible world with life permitting conditions.
Well, you may be right.
Possible worlds,
but it doesn't really matter what we feel or what we believe in the end. That's just all. I mean, what we think on the scheme of things, we're just, if you go to the top of a mountain and you look at how small we are in the universe, you look at the sky, how vast it is. We really are so small, infinitesimally small, and we think what we are all that, but we really are nothing.
So
We're
CJ,
just dust in the wind.
just like earlier when my case where I just woke up, right? Let's say you go to the top of a mountain, and you get the sense that we're so small. So why does it matter if I donate to charity or go to work tomorrow? Like you could come to any conclusion that you wanted to. Yeah, if you
Absolutely.
insignificant in the face of something that you think is grand is also not a reliable way to arrive at something that's true.
Well, if we say that you're an atheist, then there's really no rules. What does it matter what you do?
Come on, man.
I'm being honest.
No, I thought we were being nice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if there's no God, then who sets the rules? Hey, I mean, that's a tough one.
Do you think that God can fail?
Absolutely not.
Okay, let's in terms of Adam and Eve, do you think that God's goal was to create two beings that freely chose to do the good?
That's a great question. I think God created everything, and he did it for his perfect will. I'm not trying to skirt the question. I think Adam...
So you're doing this without even trying? That's impressive. I'm just kidding.
I think Adam screwed up. I think he let the woman... He could have said, Eve, you screwed up. I'm not doing it.
How would Eve have known that listening to him was good or bad?
And I'm just saying, I think Eve looked a hell of a lot like one of the Kardashians. I'm just saying she was probably beautiful.
Yeah.
And he probably loved her to death. And he said, well, I'm going to go the way with you. And excuse my expression, but screw you, God. And we're going to just do this. We're going to sin. And then he kicked him out of the garden. And here we are.
Okay, so I know that you said you weren't trying to skirt the question. Sorry, go ahead.
Just a moment. I do want to let Relic come in. He's been waiting patiently. So I don't know if you're trying to change the topic there, Relic, or if you are...
No. I was looking at the question and it was Ask Me Anything. So I just had two questions, and just to make it really unbroken, I'm a devout Catholic. So, like I'm not coming in under any sort of Trojan horse, but I appreciate the topic, which is that somebody's an atheist and Ask Me Anything. So I had two questions. The first one is, as an atheist, which fundamentally for me is I enjoy learning about everybody's beliefs and systems. As an atheist, do you feel more particular towards a certain religion, for example, Christianity, or is it very blanket? Is it there is no belief in Hinduism, Buddhism, Greek gods, whatever? There's empirically no belief in any form of deity whatsoever. So that's my first question.
Yeah, so I actively live my life like there's no gods. So I don't believe that there are any gods. Now, that doesn't rule out the possibility of a God, but for me to hold that position and for me to know that for myself, I don't think requires 100% certainty. And so I have a particular attitude towards a proposition that there is no God, and that would be the positive attitude.
So I suppose more expunging on the question is your atheistic belief based around more a disbelief in a certain God, or like as I said, there's a broad range of them. For example, is it largely based around Christian God?
Yeah, like all kind of Abrahamic gods, all like the any kind of religious doctrine that points to some kind of deity. Yeah, that's the type of God I'm speaking about. Also, like,
and it was
it's not to say that
there's no right or wrong for me. It's like that's honest. That's your answer. So I've not come in here under false premise. It was just a question I was curious to know the answer to. And the second and last question that I had is, I'm an atheist. Ask me anything. For me, that seems a little bit contradictory because there is no practicing atheism. It's simply the same as not believing that a dragon is in the room with you. But I am an atheist. Does that require regular effort on a day-to-day basis to be an atheist? Or is it just a nonchalant non-thought because it's a nothing thing?
Yeah, I mean, like...
I just find it very funny where, not you, but because I don't know you, but I find it very funny when people are like, I'm an atheist. And I'm like, mate, that just sounds like you're practicing a different religion to me. It sounds like you've got the same level of commitment. And that was my second and last question.
Yeah, so I'll try to answer it. For me, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a label that I don't think is necessary for people that don't believe in things, right? But people who are typically taking an active belief and not in no So for me, I don't believe in any gods. Usually that gets associated with a label, and that's the label.
Yeah, and I would say also, like, for some God claims, I take the strong atheist position. Like, I believe that the Christian God does not exist, right? But for some claims, I take, like, the weak atheist position, where I'm not convinced.
Can I ask any atheists out there, like, who do you think created the world?
Like the Earth? That begs the
So-
question.
I don't think that there's a
God created it all.
So just to answer your question there, God, is it Soldier? I don't think the Earth was created. I think that it formed over time through natural processes, if you want my answer to it.
Thank you.
Do you know what, mate? Like, as I said, I only had 2 questions, so I don't have any more for you, but a good, reasonable discussion around faith, even though we have different opinions on it. Good on you for holding a live panel where you're treating people who think differently to you with respect. This is the way that people should communicate. That's some common ground I think we can handshake on.
W.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I just host these usually to hang out with friends, but today it kind of turned into somewhat of a debate. I think it's mainly because my friend made me this background, and it brings up a bit of conversation that usually I don't have on my panels, but it seems to be invite people that I'm not familiar with coming up onto the panels, and yeah, it seems to be a respectful conversation thus far, but yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Deuxcray. Is it Deuxcray?
Yeah, are we back to the Kalam?
No, I'll just have another. We can go back to that again. But now that the 2 other guys that came in, Relic and God Soldier, I have a question regarding morality, because I'm a Muslim myself. I believe in divine accountability, objective morality in that sense. But then a question for you would be, so in the absence of that divine accountability, what motivates you guys then to act ethically when it's against your self-interests?
That's a great question.
Like, let's say nobody is watching and you have maybe the opportunity to help someone or something. Like, you can, of course, just make up your own example as you answer it. But when nobody's watching or whatever, and it goes against your self-interest, how would you then react in that situation?
What was the
What keeps you acting morally when there's no accountability and it goes against your interests?
You've got red slips to Croxy.
Oh, okay. Am I, like, can you hear me or no?
You're good now.
We can.
Oh, okay. What does that mean, going against my interests, right? Because, like, I would say, because I don't like doing stuff that doesn't give me dopamine, that doing laundry for my children goes against my interests, but I do it because it's good for everyone in the house.
That's not against your interest.
And
That one.
huh? What?
You got really bad connection.
Say that again? Oh, okay. Never mind.
Well, for me, I think moral behaviors in not only humans but in other social animals, it's a product of social behavior in evolutionary process.
And I think probably also a product of like compassion as well. So if no one was looking at us, we would still suffer. We would know that we did something morally wrong.
I think one of my favorite jokes, which is not funny, it's more poignant, but I think it's like a Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, and atheist all meet up at a bar or a coffee house, and they all have a decent conversation because they know how to show each other respect. And I've always loved that sentiment. Like, there's a person on here who's Muslim, and the Muslim faith is so against what I believe in as a Catholic, but there is a Venn diagram. Oh, jeepers, I sound like Kamala Harris. But there's a Venn diagram between us where we both also accept that people are different and behaviours determine people. And I do believe that people who have atheist beliefs come into that Venn diagram too, which is, I think it's innately human to actually treat each other with a lot of respect. I think people display religious values, whether they're atheist or not, because I think we're genetically predisposed to actually want the best for each other. There are some pretty sinister characters out there, 100%. But the reality is we've got an atheist, we've got a Muslim, we've got a devout Catholic, and me, and we're all having a broad discussion. And wherever this all leads to, long term, someone said about 100 years, these types of conversations are going to be the ones that make us healthier as a species.
Relic.
That's my sermon on the mount on the topic.
Relic, would you say that you think that people share religious values even if they're not religious, instead of saying that religious people share regular values? Would you say that
Gandhi said that. Gandhi said, I love Christ, but he said, I don't like Christians because they seem so opposite to Christ. You know, like there's a lot of contradictory nature. I believe that there's a hummingbird, which is religion, which guides people to being more kind of present and owning their behaviours and their respects and their beliefs. But I do not believe that atheists are inherently terrible people. And that is as somebody who takes communion every week. And that's not me trying to save atheists or anything. I think that human beings, there's a heck of a lot of decent human beings on this planet. And
you don't think that's motivated reasoning?
One way or another to good places.
You don't think that's like motivated reasoning on your part?
No, I don't, because I was brought up in a pretty dangerous Catholic household, and then I reneged and I went agnostic, and then I went full atheist, and it was only in the last 6 years that I went back fully Catholic, and that was completely of my own volition.
Yes. So wait, that's important. I think
that Mary is the mother of God, and that Jesus died for our sins, and I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, believe that God created the universe, and that the story of Adam and Eve is gospel.
So, what when you were an atheist and you went back to being Catholic, what was, if you had to pick the strongest reason why, what would that reason be?
I felt something plucked at my heart that had no rhyme nor reason, no present day sort of empirical value to it. I felt something. Felt something that was bigger than me, and you could probably call it divine intervention.
Yeah, okay. If this is probably as much as I'll stress the form, but I'm just gonna ask the same mountain question that I asked CJ. Let's say that you felt something tug at your heartstrings for no rhyme or reason, with no empirical backing. That just something satisfied in your heart that you just think that people shouldn't be treated equally. Do you think that would be a reliable pathway to a true belief?
Are you asking me? Sorry, I thought you were asking the other guy.
No, yeah, the thing that you felt in your heart. Let's say it did that thing that was tugging on your heartstrings and whispering in your mind, ears, heart, or whatever. If it didn't say, like, you know, Mary's the mother of Jesus and Adam and Eve are gospel, if it said something else like, you know, like people don't deserve equal rights or something like that, do you think that's a reliable pathway to forming true beliefs?
I think that's a really valid question, and it's why I struggle to explain my faith to people a lot. So I'm usually the guy that's got a quick answer to everything, but the reason I'm being quiet is not because I'm ignoring you or whatever, but, the reason I'm being quiet on that question is because it is something that has given me a lot of pause for thought, and I'm just, I guess, man enough to admit it.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty. Thanks.
Yeah, why you believe that those, like these qualities that you think about as good, why these would be religious qualities and not human qualities? Because it sounds like you said you grew up in, I don't remember the exact word you used in your Catholic household, but it sounded harsh.